guys, welcome back to another interview on MMAUnhinged. Today we are joined by, if I'm correct, Raphael.
Yeah, Raphael Uchegbu.
Uchegbu?
Uchegbu, yeah.
Well, where does that your second name originate from?
Yeah, Nigeria.
Nigeria. So do you class yourself as Nigerian or are you English?
Yeah, English.
So when you come to an MMA fight, do you fly the flag for England and Nigeria?
No, just England really. Yeah. It's more me great granddad. He's from Guyana, and then like the rest of my family is mostly English. So
yeah. So you're 2-0 in your professional career. You're only young into your career. Your last fight was in November 21st in 2019. You haven't fought in 2020 yet. Does that kind of frustrate you with the pandemic that you haven't been able to get in there yet?
Yeah, it has been frustrating. Obviously, I was meant to be fighting in May in London on the Bellator show, but with everything that happened, it got cancelled. So I've just been, training and getting better and improving. So it's not the end of the world that I haven't fought, but obviously, that's what we're training for all the time, to fight. So I wanted to be active this year, but obviously it hasn't happened. So what can you do?
There are positives and negatives to it. It gives you more time to prepare for your fight coming up, and then you don't get it going there. You're not as active as much. Do you kind of look at it like that you get more time to prepare for your next fight and sharpen the tools?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I've been doing, just learning new things, just getting better and better. So, whether you're fighting or not, as long as you're in the gym, getting better and improving, it doesn't really matter. When you step in there, you're going to be ready to fight anyway. So, obviously I would like to have had a fight this year, but, the fights are going to come. So why not just stay in the gym and train and just keep learning and getting better and improving.
So as we mentioned, you're 2-0 in your professional career, and both of them have come by way of submission. Is that what you look for when you go into the fight? When you're game plan, do you try and get it to the mat?
Yeah, when I'm in the gym and sparring and things like that, I'm mostly like to strike, but when I get in there, I seem to sort of, because I feel like me grappling is a bit superior, so maybe I go to that a little bit more, because I think that I can, dominate people a bit more on the ground. So when I fight, I seem to end up on the ground and going for submissions a lot more. So, but in me fights in the future, I do want to show me striking a lot more. It's like something that I'm working on, and I really want to show me striking and let me next fight will come.
So for the viewers who are watching that kind of don't know who you are, no disrespect, you're an up and coming fighter. Give them an introduction, like who you are, how you got to MMA, and where you can take this in the future.
Well, I started MMA when I was about 13, 14. Obviously, I grew up in Wavertree, and the local gym to me was actually Team Carbon. And my dad put on a local MMA show as well, where a lot of guys who got to the UFC, Paul Sass, Terry Etten, Paul Kelly, things like that, They all actually come up on that show. So I've always been around MMA from a very young age. So it was only natural for me to, get involved in the sport really. So I started training when I was quite young. I was training with the pros from when I was about 15. At that time, because it was so long ago, MMA wasn't really as big as it is now. So there wasn't really many young guys like my age who were doing the sport. So it was hard for me to get fights. And I was training for, all this time. I think it's trained for like 5 years solid. And it was just, I was really struggling to get fights. I've only had 3 amateur fights in my career. So during that time, I trained for like 5 years solid, and I'd had some time off, come away from it a little bit. And then a few years ago, I come back to the sport. And obviously things just started, because it's so big now, things just started planning out for me, and I ended up getting the contract with Bellator 2 years ago.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, that you started your career at 13, 14. But if you put that in respect to a lot of British fighters like Jimmy Manuwa, Brad Pickett, they all started in their late 20s. I mean, Jimmy Manuwa started at like 26 and Pickett started at 28, something like that. Or they might be the other way around. But yeah, they started late, and look how far they made it. They made it to the UFC. They were in the top 5 in the UFC. So you started young in your career. So, you've got a lot of potential ahead of you.
Yeah, it's one of them sports where you can, obviously there's a lot of guys who are fighting until they're like 40, and you don't really hit your peak until you're around about 30, 31, 32, around about that time, when your game becomes a bit more complete. So I've been lucky to have started it from such a young age, and you know, obviously I'm still learning, still getting better now, so there's still a long way to go.
So as you mentioned there, you got the contract with Bellator and you've had your 2 fights in Bellator and finished both of them. And Bellator recently just announced that they're coming back to France and Italy for the European fighters, I imagine. Are you
Yeah.
putting your name out there to try and get on one of their events?
So I was actually meant to be on one of them shows, but I picked up a few injuries in camp over the last like few weeks and things like that. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to sort of get on them cards. But they said that they're going to be putting more shows on, hopefully November, December time. So I should be able to get at least one fight in this year.
So you put your name out there to try and get on the show. Then did you have an opponent or did you just?
Oh no, so I didn't have an opponent. You were like looking for an opponent for me, and then before I had an opponent, it sort of all didn't happen. So
it was that early, yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like, you know, as I say, there's going to be plenty of time to fight. So I just said, you know, I don't mind waiting until November, December to.
While we're on the topic of Bellator France, a huge British fight just got announced: MVP versus Ross Houston. How do you see that going?
I'm rooting for my boy Ross Houston. Yeah, we're managed by the same people, and he's a good guy. I've met him a few times. He's come to train in Carbon a few times as well. So I'm hoping he can do a job on MVP. He's got a tough task on his hands, but he's a tough fighter and he's a very, very game fighter as well. So I think he can cause MVP some trouble.
MVP's been known for his fighting lesser competition that he is, but a lot of people are kind of foreshadowing Ross Houston's ability. They're kind of putting him down, but I think he's a game opponent. I mean, look at his fight against Nicholas Dalby. Nicholas Dalby's in the UFC. He got his win a few months ago, and now he's fighting MVP. So they need to like put some respect on Ross Houston's name because he can really go in there and do some damage on MVP.
Yeah. Of course, it's just that obviously everyone who fights MVP seems to have this stigma of they're a lesser opponent, but you know, a fight to fight, people are getting in there to take your head off either way. So, you know, he's just going out there and beating you, putting in front of him. Obviously, it'd be good to see him fight some of the, you know, the top guys. Like obviously you see in the daily fight that didn't really go the way everyone wanted it to. You know, Douglas Lima, he got finished by Douglas Lima, and there is a few fights out there, but I think Ross Houston is a good fight for Bellator to have put on Cage Warriors champion, and I think it will test their MVP this time.
One punch, one takedown can change the game all the way from heavyweight to flyweight. You know, you don't know in the sport. It's very unpredictable. So it could literally go anywhere. So with the pandemic, with you not being able to fight, would you be able to still train? Have you just got back to training, and how does it feel? Have you just got back to training? We'll solve that.
So obviously, with all the lockdown that happened, I was forced to, you know, the old home workout and all that kind of business, which just didn't work for me at all. So I was flying in the gym, I was training all the time. Then the lockdown happened, and then I was trying to, you know, keep myself active, but it just wasn't. I couldn't get myself motivated. Them home workouts just weren't cutting it for me. So I had a few weeks where I was just getting fat, and then a few of the lads in the gym, well, like just saying, they were just doing some sessions between themselves. So I just started getting back to work and just doing things with them. And then obviously they said that professional athletes can train, and as soon as that happened, I was just back in the gym, and then it was all just back to normal because we had Till, Grundy, and Tom Aspinall who were all fighting on Fight Island. So it was like fight camp time to get everyone, all of them prepared. So we were all just training, just grinding, helping them out.
So talk about how you just got back into the gym recently. How eager are you to get back in there? Unfortunately, you did get the injury, but looking past the injury, how quick do you want to try and get back in there, and how eager?
Just as soon as possible. Obviously, all these shows that have been announced now, it's probably not likely that I'm going to get on them, but anything after that, you know, I'll be ready for, and you know, I'm eager to fight. As I say, this is what we train every day for. We're training all the time so that we can get in there and fight someone, and you know, let that anger and aggression out. So we don't want to just be training for nothing. So hopefully, as soon as we can get another date or another show announced, hopefully my name will be first on the list.
Have you got a schedule when you could possibly return back? When you're looking to get back in the cage?
November, December should be perfect time. So let's see what they come up with. Let's see how these shows go. Obviously, it's still all up in the air with what's going to happen with this coronavirus still. So who knows what's going to happen?
My next question has Bellator come forward and offered you an opponent? But we kind of found out that they didn't offer you an opponent. It's still in the early stages of the talking. So we'll move on. So you train at Team Kaboom. You train around with some elite level guys. We're talking about Mike Grundy, Tom Aspinall, Darren Till, and many, many more. How does it feel to be around the atmosphere in elite level guys in the gym?
You know, it's unbelievable. For I've been training with these elite level guys since I was a kid, really, since I started training in the gym. You know, like Terry Etten, one of my idols. He was the one who sort of made me want to start the sport from watching him on like the local shows and things like that. He used to like walk out and carry his belts and things. So, you know, I've always been training around them guys, and then you've always like Team Carbon a few years ago. It had more UFC fighters then than it does now. So it's just, you know, it's been quite normal, but it's inspiring to see that, like, you know, just local lads like myself who can, you know, push and grind and get the way to the top. So it's, you know, the atmosphere in the gym, and you know, all these guys are training for the fight and things like that. It's just it's tough, but it's good work.
Talking about atmosphere, what is the atmosphere like when Darren Till enters the room? You know, he's a character. I can imagine it's pretty good atmosphere.
Yeah. Obviously, as they say, I've not, because I've known him since he started and he joined Team Carbon. Like I've watched his rise from like when he literally just started and he was just a striker to now where obviously he's a complete mixed martial artist. It's like, for me, it's just normal seeing him come into the gym, but obviously, you know, you get guys coming from all over the world who are coming to train in our gym now just because Darren Till sort of put it on the map again and things like that. But you know, he's a character. He's a funny guy. He's good to be around. He really like pushes us and just, you know, motivates us. As I say, just because being a local lad who's made it to the top of the game, it's good and it's inspiring to see that it is possible.
So the 135-pound division in Bellator at the minute is looking really, really hot and really deep. You got James Gallagher, you got Ricky Banderas, Sergio Pettis, Barnard Chuleta, Patchy Mix, and there's many, many more. Does that kind of excite you and get you more motivated to get involved in the division?
Yeah, of course. It's always exciting when there's some good guys in the division. And I think that the bantamweight division in Bellator is probably one of the strongest at the minute. There's even the guys who are just up and coming who aren't sort of at that top level yet, you know. It's you know, all these big fights that you see and that are happening now, Gallagher versus, you know, Cal Ellinan and things like that. That's obviously in the future. You know, these are hopefully guys who I'm going to be sort of coming up against and fighting. So it's exciting to see. Yeah.
As we mentioned there, you'd like to come up against them. Which one of them names would you fancy yourself against in the future?
Any really, I'd like to fight. Obviously, it's cliche to say James Gallagher because everyone, you know, wants to call him out, but I'd like to fight him. I think he's a good fighter. He's good on the ground. I just think he talks a little bit too much. But there's plenty of guys out there who would like to fight. I don't really mind them. I want to sort of sit here and call people out, but you're gonna have to fight everybody anyway at some point. So whoever it is, it doesn't matter really to me.
And so while we're talking about James Gallagher, I've got to ask, how would you see that fight going then?
I don't know. I could see it. I'd probably finish him on the feet. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to take it down to the ground. I'd like to keep it a striking fight against him.
Do you reckon if you take it down to the ground, it'd be more of like a chess match and?
Probably more of a chess match because obviously I do respect his ground game. But yeah, on the feet, I'd like to test that out and see where he's at there.
All right, last question. If Scott Coker calls you tomorrow and says, we've got a fight for you, but you get to choose your opponent, who would you choose and why?
Yeah, put me on the spot here. It's hard to really think of guys who are in like
the same bracket as you.
Yeah, the same bracket as me. Let's just say James Gallagher again.
James Gallagher, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go for one more while we're here. So, Tom Aspinall, he just got announced that he'll be fighting at Fight Island again. How's it going to feel? Are you going to help him get prepared for I know he's a bit bigger than you, and you know he's a heavyweight, but are you going to help him like get the fundamentals ready for his fight in Fight Island?
Yeah, we're all in the gym training together, grinding together. You know, he's a big heavyweight, so probably stays away from me when it comes to sparring and things like that. But the odd time we get to get some working together, and he's looking phenomenal for this fight. Obviously, for anyone who doesn't know Tom, like when you watch him, you will get to know him because he's going to be a fast rise in the UFC. I think, especially because the heavyweight division isn't as stacked as most. So I think that he really will get to the top very fast.
I've tried to get him on the show quite a few times. He's denied my request, unfortunately. Same with Darren Till.
I'll put the word in for you and I'll see if I can pull a few strings.
Darren Till has also ignored my messages, but you know, we keep going, we keep grinding, and we're going to get there eventually.
Yeah, I think he gets 100 messages a day, Darren Till.
I could imagine if I was Darren Till, yeah. Well, that's all we got for today, unfortunately. But thank you very much, and hopefully you heal up, get back into the cage, and hopefully you get a win under your belt again and improve to 3-0.
Very much, mate. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thank you.